Handpicked, stories from the field.
Hi, and welcome to Handpicked, Stories from the Field, a podcast created by the folks at the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems. I'm Lane Young.
And I'm Amanda DiBattista.
And we're so excited to host this podcast series and to help walk you through the wild and wonderful field of sustainable food systems research.
We are particularly happy to bring these stories to you in podcast form so that you get the opportunity to hear directly from researchers and community partners. We hope their voices in your ears will help their stories come to life. In each episode, you'll hear from a whole range of people who are working to make our food systems better. We've talked with seasoned researchers, students, food system activists, community organizers, policymakers, and the people who grow, gather, and get our food to our plates. Our aim is to give you a glimpse into the food system and help you better understand how food systems can be more sustainable. Before we get started, we should probably tell you a little bit about who we are. I'm Amanda, a project coordinator at the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems. One of my roles at the center is to help researchers communicate their ideas to the public.
Like with this podcast?
Yeah, like that.
And I'm Lane. I'm a PhD candidate at Wilfrid Laurier University. I work with the center on a few projects, including my dissertation research that focuses on women in urban agriculture in Ecuador. We'll learn a little bit more about this project in our second season.
The Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems, or LCSFS for short, is a research center at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. The centre is based in the Balsillie School for International Affairs in Waterloo, but includes food systems researchers, students, and practitioners from across Canada and around the world.
The LCSFS is a part of a wider network of researchers focused on making food systems more sustainable, and its associates and students work on all sorts of projects related to food and sustainability. To get a sense of exactly what the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems does, we sat down with Dr. Alison Blay-Palmer.
I'm Alison Blay-Palmer. I'm the director of the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems that's affiliated with Wilfrid Laurier University, and I'm a professor in the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies.
We started by asking Dr. Blay-Palmer to tell us about the LCSFS as a research center.
The LCSFS has been around since 2013, so we've been around for quite a while now. We're involved in a number of research projects, both in Canada and outside of Canada. The two major projects that we have are FLEDGE, which stands for Food Locally Embedded, Globally Engaged, and that's a Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council-funded project. It's a partnership that includes 89 organizations and 132 individuals. We've trained over 194 students in the last 5 years, and we've attracted more than $3.47 million in matching funding. So we're having a great big impact in Canada, and we also get to work with people outside of Canada. So in Canada, we have research nodes in the Northwest Territories, where we do work on traditional food systems in the context of climate change. We also work with scholars in British Columbia and at the University of Alberta. We have partners across Ontario. We have 3 nodes here where we're working with people in the north at Lakehead University. We also collaborate with people at Carleton University out east in Eastern Ontario. And in Southern Ontario, we work with academics and students at University of Guelph, University of Waterloo, and Ryerson. And we also have a research node in Quebec and another one in Atlantic Canada. And the focus of all that work is on doing community-defined and community-driven research around sustainable food systems. The second project is called URBAL, and it's focused on urban innovation in food systems. And what we're doing there is we're working to develop a methodology that can be used to really diagram out, is essentially what we're doing, what's happening in the innovation process so that we can understand and develop a guide that people can use to capture the results and the changes that are happening as a result of food system innovation and how that's helping people move towards increasing sustainability or not.
Hold on. Back up, Amanda. What is a sustainable food system?
Great question. We asked Alison to explain.
Sustainability in food is all about having fair, healthy, localized, ecologically regenerative, so systems that give back instead of take from the environment, and also include as many citizens as possible.
Okay, I like how that sounds, but what would a fair, healthy, localized, ecologically regenerative food system actually look like?
Well, I asked Alison for an example of a sustainable food system, and she told me that fully realized sustainable food systems are currently more of an ideal than a reality. Here's Alison to explain it in more detail.
Sustainable food systems are something that we're working towards in an aspirational way. So it would be very difficult for me to give you an example, unfortunately, of a completely sustainable food system, because unfortunately they're few and far between at this point. But what we're hoping to accomplish through the lens of food, all the words in that phrase, sustainable food systems, are important. So if we think about the idea of sustainability, we're looking at the 3 pillars as defined through our common future. So we're looking at having social justice dimensions, ecological regeneration, health and well-being, local economic vitality, and citizen engagement. So those are really the key concepts that we try to bring to the table when we're supporting different projects. And we know from our work in Canada, the EU, and beyond that food enables citizens, practitioners, policymakers, private enterprise, and academics to experience how food can be a lever for change and how it can bring about transformative change within communities.
Okay, so the researchers at the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems bring sustainability and food systems together as a way to ground their research?
Exactly. And it's important to note that sustainability can be a bit of a tricky concept. You've probably heard the term in the news, in advertising, and in everyday conversation for years, sometimes with little clarity on what people actually mean. The researchers at the LCSFS start with the most common conception of sustainability as it was articulated in the report of the World Commission on Environment and Development, Our Common Future, commonly referred to as the Brundtland Report, in 1987. Quote, "Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs." While this definition of sustainability is relatively simple to understand, the report was the result of a large-scale international consultation process. It is 300 pages long and includes a focus on multiple dimensions of sustainability, including attention to equity, environment, and the economy. Definitions of sustainability can also shift depending on context, and the researchers at the LCSFS recognize that there are tons of ways to approach the same problem of our common future.
So why did the LCSFS researchers choose food systems as a lens to explore sustainability?
Well, because everyone eats. We are all embedded within food systems, and the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems researchers recognize food as an important lever for change. Here's Alison again.
So within the idea of sustainability, a food system is an important place where we can start to think about and act to create sustainability. So food systems are important because in a food system, and we were talking before about city regions, in regional food systems, what we're looking at is actually food all the way from the seed through to the compost heap, and all of the different points in the chain between the seeds and the compost, and how food gets grown, what the impact on the environment is, what producers have in terms of income and labor standards and all those kinds of considerations, how food gets processed, distributed, marketed to people, what consumers do when they get it on their plates, and then what happens to it after that in terms of waste management. So when we're thinking about sustainability and we're thinking about food systems, it's really important to put those two things together, because otherwise we have a very efficient industrialized food system that does those things but doesn't do it sustainably. What we're doing is we're layering on the idea of sustainability and looking at the food system through that lens.
Okay, that definitely makes sense, but it's pretty complex.
Yeah, it really is. And the thing about the term sustainable food systems is that, like the definition of sustainability, it can change depending on who you are and what your stake in the food system is.
So like Alison said, a sustainable food system is aspirational, something that we're working towards. It's not a set definition that everyone needs to use.
Right.
To better understand sustainable food systems, we spoke to the LCSFS board members and graduate students. We asked them to define what sustainable food systems mean in terms of the work that they do. Not surprisingly, we heard a wide range of definitions that varied depending on their perspectives. Individually, each definition is interesting and tells us something about the person speaking and what a sustainable food system is in theory and in practice. Taken together, though, the definition becomes a bigger and richer whole picture of what a sustainable food system might be.
In this section of the episode, we've presented those definitions in quick succession with only a little bit of commentary in between. We like to think of this approach as an audio collage where the voices and ideas of board members and students from the LCSFS can play off of each other to give us a better sense of the relationship between sustainability and food.
Irina Knezevich, an associate professor at Carleton University in the School of Journalism and Communication and LCFS board member, gave us nods in the direction of our common future. She imagines sustainability in a way that's really accessible and leaves lots of room for differing research approaches.
I've been thinking a lot about sustainable food systems, and to me, sustainable food system is one that sustains rather than depletes. It's a system that looks differently in different contexts, but it's never exploitative. Instead, it nourishes humans and their health, ecosystems, communities, and diverse systems of knowledge.
Wow, I love how she talks about a sustainable food system being one that nourishes. I love that language.
Yeah, she really paints a picture of a sustainable food system that's easy to understand and easy to see yourself in. Andrea Collins, assistant professor at Waterloo University in the School of Environment, Resources and Sustainability, and also an LCFS board member, used similar language to Irina, but because her work focuses on gender and its role in the governance of food, land, and agriculture, she also brought in the importance of alternative forms of knowledge and labor. Here's what Andrea had to say about sustainable food systems. These are her words, but not her voice.
For me, sustainability means considering both the social and ecological dynamics of food systems. So a sustainable food system is one that is able to meet everyone's needs, both today and tomorrow, using methods that support long-term ecological resilience. It also fosters not just access to, but enjoyment of nourishing foods for everyone. A sustainable food system is one that values various modes of labor and knowledge, while also fostering community building, equity, and connection with our environments.
Next, we spoke with Teresa Shumalis, who you'll be hearing from in several of the upcoming episodes of this podcast. Teresa is a lovely blend of activist, farmer, and academic. She studies how digital economies and internet communication technologies can work to scale up grassroots food innovation. She also runs an organic and ecological farm just outside of Waterloo. Here's Teresa.
A sustainable food system is a goal. It's something that we work towards. It doesn't and will never fully exist. Our practices, such as the way we produce food, the way we exchange and share it, the kinds of food we eat, how we prepare it, the way we reuse waste, all of these things, they all need to be constantly improving so that we're better for the natural environment and more fair and healthier for everyone, from producers to eaters.
Oh, that's similar to Alison's definition.
Yeah, you definitely start to see some common themes here. Next, I sat down with Maggie Mills, an LCSFS master's student studying food security in the downtown east side of Vancouver. I absolutely love her perspective on sustainable food systems.
To me, a sustainable food system is one that regenerates environmental quality, centers cultural importance of food, empowers women and trans people, reduces barriers to food access, enables people to choose what food they consume, addresses racism, rejects diet culture, dismantles charity models of food access, and fosters food education. All of these characteristics are dynamic and changing constantly. Perhaps because of this, the most important thing that I try to remember when I think about sustainable food systems is that a sustainable food system is extremely contextual and not a uniform framework to be replicated from community to community.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I love how she talks about the cultural importance of food. That's something I hadn't thought much of.
Her definition is so inclusive. She also sees it as a dynamic and constantly changing. Next, I spoke with Alex Latta. He is a member of the LCSFS Board of Directors and a faculty member in the Department of Global Studies at Laurier. His research is focused on supporting Indigenous communities to establish environmental stewardship and monitoring objectives according to their traditional knowledge and ways of using the land. Take a listen.
For me, a sustainable food system, it's one that embraces the fact that humans are really embedded in broader biotic communities. So, in that sense, humans can have secure access to healthy food only to the extent that, the other beings with whom we share the planet are also really nourished by their relationships with us. So in my work with Indigenous communities in the Northwest Territories, I see that kind of principle, really clearly in their philosophy and their approach to land-based foods. A statement that I hear a lot when I'm speaking with community members in the North is something like, we care for the land, and so the land provides for us. And I think that just sort of sums up the guiding principle of reciprocity that really underlies their relationship with their food system and with the land. So for me, an alternate vision for the future is one that really embraces collective well-being as the end goal of our relations and our actions in relation to within food systems. I think that's what really promises social and ecological justice, not just for humans, but also for the broader non-human communities that we are all a part of.
Interesting. So he works in the Northwest Territories? It seems like the LCSFS has a lot of researchers up there.
There's some outstanding work being done up in the Northwest Territories, and our listeners will hear more about this in future podcast episodes.
Amazing.
Patricia Belamingi is another LCSFS board member and an associate professor at Carleton in the Geography and Environmental Studies program. She studies just and sustainable food systems and food policy and governance. Trish gave a comprehensive definition when we spoke.
A sustainable and just food system ensures adequate, safe, nutritious, and culturally appropriate food for all, treats food as a basic human right, ensures citizens have advanced food literacy, self-provisioning and cooking skills, uses food as a portal to deliver other programs and supports that advance social inclusion and equity, embraces and operationalizes principles of food sovereignty, practices humane animal husbandry, protects workers' rights and well-being, ensuring a living wage, upholding safety standards, eliminating exposure to toxic and hazardous substances, enjoys local productive capacity resilient enough to withstand shocks to the global supply chain, ensures relationships with global producers built on principles of fair trade, allows community-based food and farming or gardening initiatives to thrive, supports small and medium-scale producers and processors, considers food access, sustainable agriculture, and farmer livelihoods in tandem, minimizes food waste and food loss, regenerates ecosystem integrity through innovative and time-tested agroecological practices by capturing carbon, protecting biodiversity, and so on, minimizes embodied water and energy associated with all stages of the supply chain, and balances agricultural production with other critical ecosystem services.
Wow, there's a lot there, but it builds on what other people have already said. I'm so glad that someone has brought up food sovereignty, but maybe that's a term that folks haven't heard before.
Yes, it's a point that Carla Johnson also expands on. She's completing her PhD at the Balsillie School of International Affairs. Her research explores the governance of sustainable food systems in Canada's north.
Sustainable food systems do not have a set definition because they are really context-specific and can change over time. But the broad themes of food systems needing to be ecologically sustainable, socially and culturally nourishing, and economically viable can connect differences. How we figure out what ecological, social, cultural, and economic sustainability looks like in a specific time and place needs to come from a political process. By political, I mean a space where different, especially marginalized, ways of understanding the world, as well as ideas of how it should be governed, can be voiced and be part of the decision-making process. This connects to the concept of food sovereignty, which is defined as the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agricultural systems. Ultimately, food sovereignty is an action. It is about finding ways to place decision-making power in the hands of those that rely on that system.
Oh, I like how Carla talks about ecological, social, cultural, economic, and political sustainability. It's such a multidimensional idea.
For sure. Next, we'll hear from Caitlin Koch, a master's student with the LCSFS. She worked in the Northwest Territories in a town called Kakisa and researched methods of monitoring environmental changes with the community. We will hear more about this project in upcoming episodes of Handpicked. Here's Caitlin telling us what a sustainable food system means for her.
I think a sustainable food system means having access to the foods that are important at an individual and community level, but are able to be accessed in a way that supports a wider and local ecosystem. I think having access to a sustainable food system means investing in solutions that support sustainable actions globally and locally. I don't think there is a one-way approach to developing a sustainable food system.
I like that she talks about scale, the individual and the community.
Yeah, and how she mentions that a sustainable food system should support a wider ecosystem. She's basically a GIS wizard, so her vision is supported by a lot of interesting research.
Awesome. She works with Andrew Spring, right?
Yeah, they work together in Kakisa. I also sat down with Andrew, who you'll hear a lot more of in this podcast. He is a knowledge mobilization specialist whose role is to liaise between researchers, northern communities, and organizations to build networks and facilitate knowledge transfer and communication between stakeholders. Here's Andrew.
I always think of the term sustainable, and you can use this for sustainable food systems, is that place that's always on the horizon, the place that you're always striving to get to. So when we're talking about food systems, we're reflecting on the food system that we have now, and we're looking for ways that we can make it better in the future. So for some of us, it's making it more just and more equitable, and for some of us, it's more locally produced food. In the north, for sure, it has that. There's a lot of governance and self-determination and protection of land and natural resources. It's all a part of that, but it's that thing that we're always working towards. So again, what is a sustainable food system? I don't know, but I know what makes a food system more sustainable, right? So I don't want people to think about, there's no picture that you can take of what a sustainable food system is. It's up to each of us and communities and regions to determine what food system we want that represents who we are and makes us healthy and happy, and how do we get there. So maybe I envision it more as a process and a goal versus something you can see or experience.
Oh, that's a nice one to end on. I like that he brings it back to something we envision, a process, a goal as opposed to something we can experience. A lot of the definitions that we heard were really dense. So it's nice to be reminded that we are working towards a more sustainable food system and not a perfect food system.
For sure, there were some strong links to be found between all the definitions. Throughout these different perspectives, we often heard words like food sovereignty, access, community, resilience, relationships, and diversity. While it's clear we can't come up with one single definition of what a sustainable food system is, I think that this exercise has been an interesting deep dive into the idea. I just want to thank all of our students and board members for participating in this, by the way.
Yeah, thanks to you all. So, since we've spent a lot of time talking about what a sustainable food system could look like, I think it's important to address what the food system looks like right now. I asked Alison for some context on where we're at and what it will take to work towards the aspirational goal of a sustainable food system.
Our food system right now is pretty dysfunctional. We have more than 800 million people in the world who are food insecure. We have 70% of the world's farmers live in developing countries in the global south, and many of those people are food insecure because they don't have access to their land in a viable way. They can't grow the crops they need to. Our food system is being pushed in the direction of monoculture. That is destructive of habitats. It's not ecologically sound. And the tragedy is we know how to fix this problem. We know what we need to do to make our food system healthy. We know what we need to do to make our food system address the most pressing issue of our day right now, which is climate change for everybody. And food systems contribute, depending on the part of the food system that you're looking at, more than 40% of greenhouse gases overall come from the food system. We waste between 30 and 50% of our food. There are huge benefits that can be gained by doing food in a different way. We also have a food system that feeds way too much ultra-processed food to people and is creating health crises around the world. So we have a food system that is very broken. And sustainable food systems offers a way of looking at the food system so that it's not a problem, it becomes a solution. And it becomes a solution to the health issues, it becomes a solution to social inequity, it becomes a solution to land tenure issues, it becomes a solution to how we manage our ecology in a way that we can have health and well-being for everybody on the planet. And we know how to do it. It's just a question of being enabled to do it. And that's what we're trying to do at Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems.
So that sounds like the intervention that you're trying to make into food systems as they exist right now is change at local and global, at all different scales. Yes. How are you doing that with research? What's the value of research when you're trying to make that kind of on the ground change?
Well, you have to operate at different scales. We can't, and you have to connect the different scales together. And you have to have the global policy informed by what's actually possible on the ground. So, for example, one of the things that we're doing through the center is we're supporting the Food and Agriculture Cluster at the United Nations. So that's one way that we're helping to impact policy development and insert food and urban-rural linkages and all of that language into global documents. We also have projects affiliated with the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, which is a global initiative that has more than 180 signatory cities. And that uses principles of sustainability and sustainable food systems as well. And through the Canadian projects, we're also identifying good practices and supporting local communities. We also do work in Brazil. We support work there. And all of those are very community-focused interventions.
It sure sounds like the LCSFS is doing a lot of work.
Oh, yeah, but there's so much more to do. I asked Alison what the future holds for the LCSFS, especially in the context of the worsening climate change crisis.
Climate change is definitely on our radar screen. It's increasingly a priority. It's something that we've been working with as part of the conversations that we've had within communities, but it's becoming a much more deliberate part of our conversations. So the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems identified it as a key research component moving forward in the future, and engaging with the City Region Food Systems Climate Resilience Project is one first step in that direction. But we've also been doing work, as I set up in the Northwest Territories, for example, is about that. The projects that we have down that we're helping to support down in Brazil also help to mitigate climate change. There's a rainforest preservation effect of those projects. It's all about traditional food systems and helping local farmers grow more yerba mate and market it. And using agroecological principles, which is the kind of farming system that we support, we can help to address climate change. By definition, agroecology helps to mitigate the effects of climate change. So it's part of what we do, but we're going to articulate it more clearly.
Well, that sounds exciting.
I know. We have a lot of great stories to tell on this show from all of our Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems researchers and partners. I'm so excited to showcase the work being done to move towards a more sustainable food system. I'd like to end with some words from Alison.
Can I ask you a personal question? What are you most proud of that that the LCSFS has, the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems has achieved?
I think the thing that I would say I would be the proudest of are the opportunities that we've been able to create for many different people and communities, and linking those partners together, putting people together, creating those opportunities for students to learn, for people to do research, for knowledge to be shared, and for knowledge to be spread. And I think that that's really the biggest contribution in a nutshell of what the center has been able to add to the conversation.
Wow. Bringing people together to create and share knowledge. That sounds like the way towards a sustainable food system.
Yeah, it's really important and dynamic work. And as the challenges to the way we grow, get, and eat food become more complex, the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems network is growing and adapting to meet those challenges head on. That's why I'm thrilled to work with the LCSFS.
Me too. And I'm really happy to share our stories through this podcast. So that's our first episode. We hope you enjoyed it and that it brings forward some interesting discussion.
Looking forward to the rest of the season, you can expect to hear stories about food systems directly from the people researching and working to make those food systems more sustainable. You'll also hear innovative ideas and projects that demonstrate what it means to work towards a sustainable food system. This season, you'll learn about northern food systems, hear from leading policy experts on food system change, discover how we measure sustainability in food systems, and learn how small farmers are embracing technology to get their food to market.
We want to thank you all for listening and hope to see you back for our next episode. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen and maybe share it with a friend.
Also, you can follow us on Twitter at handpickedpodc or send us an email at handpickedpodcast@wlu.ca.
Thanks to Alison Blay-Palmer, all board members and students, Andrea Collins, Trish Balamingi, Irina Knezevich, Alex Lada, Teresa Shumalis, Andrew Spring, Caitlin Koch, Maggie Mills, and Carla Johnson.
This episode was hosted and produced by us, Amanda DiBattista
and Lane Young,
with research and editing by Chiamaka Okafor-Justin and Jake Bernstein. Original music and our title theme is composed by Keenan Reimer Watts.
Voiceovers from this episode by Takmina Shokarova. We wouldn't be able to do this without the support of the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems in Wilfrid Laurier University, as well as the Balsillie School of International Affairs.
Please check out our show notes for bibliography and links to other relevant information that we use to produce this episode. Make sure you visit our website for other ways to engage with us. We would like to acknowledge that this episode was recorded and produced on the lands of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We encourage you all to click on the land acknowledgement link in the show notes to learn more. As always, I'm Amanda DiBattista.
And I'm Lane Young, and this has been an episode of the Laurier Centre for Sustainable Food Systems podcast, Handpicked.
Make sure to tune in next time for more freshly picked stories from the field.
Thank you.